Hey guys, so in today's video we are going to clone a page from GSM Arena. So this is the page we are going to clone. Just going to clone this section, and as a disclaimer, this is just for education purposes. And this is the section we are going to clone using HTML CSS, because I thought we could start creating real world projects. And this is the current real view of the blank HTML. And this is what we are going to build. You can see it is almost similar to what we have in the GSM Arena. So let's get started. We're going to create this project. So first thing first, in our index.html, we do have a blank template. And then in our CSS, we do have some default CSS styles, but these are just loading the fonts. We have two fonts here. We have the Arimo font and the Oswald font. And then we add our default CSS styles. We add the main font. We add some padding to the body, and we add a color to the text elements. And then we also capture all the headings and give them a different font and a different color. That's it. That's all we have. So if I go to my CSS, the first thing is just to link the CSS like that. And this happens to correspond to the name of the title of the file name, or the name of the file name of our CSS. So this is the live page, which is already served. And then something else you might notice is that we need some images. So let me create a folder called images. And then I'm going to copy some of these images. These are all the images we are using in some icons. So we need to copy all these and paste them. Let me show you. So these are all of the images that we do have on icons, and also the icons. You can see this is the Huawei image. And then this one is the heart, the graph, the battery, motherboard, resolution, screen, and shutter speed. So all these icons are being used here. You can see them. And then you might ask, where am I going to get these icons? You can go to my GitHub repository, github.com/techwithtwin/TikTok projects. And then look for a project that is called GSM Huawei P60. Just click on that. And then all the images are inside this folder of images. So go ahead and copy these images, all these images, and let's continue with our project. So going back to the HTML, and let's go back to the live page. So what you can see here is that we do have a heading, and then after the heading we have some paragraph text. This paragraph text is name is specification. So we're just going to start with that. And today I'm not going to create a card. I'm going to create using the brand name of that phone. So Huawei P60. That's the name of our div we are going to use. So, and then we just add the heading. So we can use a heading level 2 and say Huawei P60 Pro. All right. And then we add the paragraph that is for the specification. You can say specifications. All right. After adding the specification, now we get into the content. This content, as you can see it has two sections. It has the left section and the right section. So you're just going to create those. So I'm just going to say .content, and then say the content. I will start with an image, and the source of the image is the Huawei. You go to the images, Huawei P60 Pro image. If you go back here, you can see the image is already loaded. And then you're going to give this image some height. So this one will have a height of 200 pixels. Let's do just 200. And then we can give an alt. This alt will just specify that this is a Huawei P60 Pro. Just like that. And then that's the first section. Then you need to add the next section. So I also give this a class of icon because I'm going to style all these So we don't need the class of icon here. This is not an icon. All right. The next thing we need is the other div. So the other div, this is the div with the details. So you're just going to create a div. So we have now two elements. We have the image and I'll give it a class of .details. So we have two elements, the image and the details. These are laid side by side. You can see the image and the details. And inside the details is where now we have yet another div. And inside that div, we have another div. So now let's go to this section. You can see this section also has two elements, the icon and the other section. So the first thing is that to create the whole div, so let's create a div. Let's give it a class of item. And then inside the item, we create this icon and then another div that will hold the inches, the product title and the paragraph or the subtitle. So we're going to create another image, and this image we want is the resolution images. So let's do resolution.svg. And this one, we are going to give it a class of icon. This is an icon. And then let's give it a width of 30 and a height of 30 as well. So you come back, you can see the icon has showed here. The next thing is that now we have the image icon, and then we need another div to hold these two, right? So we just create another div here that will hold those two, and this div will hold, let's start with the inches. So this one will be, let's use a H4 here and say 6.67 inches. And then you use a paragraph and then say 1220 x 2700 pixels. And I think we are done with the first section. You can see it. We are going to style them, but for now I think we are okay. So the next thing is to copy these down. So we have more. So we have 2, 3, 4. You have 4 items, and let me just move this away so that you can see. So we have 4 items. Now you can see them. We're just going to change let's change the second items. So the second item icon is the shutter icon. So the shutter icon. So let's go to let me make this a little bit bigger again. So let's go to the next. So we have one, not that one. So this one now holds the shutter. You can say shutter.svg. And then now in the shutter, we are saying that this is 48 megapixels, 48 MP, and then 2160p. Let's do that, 2160p. All right, the next one is the motherboard. So you have the motherboard SVG, and then the motherboard has 8/12 GB RAM. So we have 8/12 GB RAM. And then we have now the description is Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 4G. All right, and the last one we have now the battery. So we get the image as the battery, and then this one says 4815 mAh, and then let's call this one charge capacity. I think we are done. We're done with that section. And then if we go back now, you can see all the icons have been loaded as we expect. Finally, let's create the bottom section. The bottom section has 3 elements: the button, this 1.4%, and 374. So still to get that working, so we have to collapse the details. As we said that this card holds the heading, the subheading, which is specification, the content, and this one we can call it maybe bottom. Let's create another div with a class of bottom. So we can say dot bottom, and inside the bottom we are going to create a button, and this button will say read our reviews. That is the red button, you can see it. And then now we have the top section and the bottom section. So we have a div on top, we have the parent div, a div that is holding this icon and the text, and then the paragraph. So what we are going to do now is to create that. So we are going to say div, this is the wrapper div which wraps these two, and then in the top we have another div, we can say div, and then inside we have an image. This time we are going to grab the images and the graph image. All right, and this one needs a class of icon, and then a width of 30 and a height of 30. All right, and then after the image we have now let's use the h4 and say 2,753,644 hits. All right, and then now after this div, now we have the bottom paragraph tag, and then this one paragraph says so 2,753,644 hits. So we made a mistake here. This one is 1.4%, so we can do 1.4%. Now this one corresponds to this one, and this image corresponds to this image, and they are wrapped inside a div. And then after that div, we get now the text. Now we copy this down, and let's change some things. Now we are going to change the icon to be the heart open. Say heart open. And then here we can now change this to 374. And then finally become a fan. So you can say become a. That's it for the markup. I think this is it for the markup. Now if we go and check, you can see now we have everything we need. We also have this bottom section, and now it's just a matter of styling. So what are we going to start with? So let's go back to the CSS. What we are going to start with is this div, the parent div. So the parent div is called Huawei P60. We're going to display it flex so that we can add some gaps between the elements. So we are going to say so dot Huawei P60, and then display flex, and then flex direction of column. Let's go back to this so that we can see, and a gap of 0.8 rem. You can see the gap has been applied. The next thing, let's now grab this text. Now inside this text is uppercased. So if you come here, you can see it is uppercased. So you just grab it. So how we grab it is by Huawei P60 and then the direct child. So to use the direct child selector, so I think that was, so to do the direct child selector, we do Huawei P60 and then the direct child P. Now this one goes to the div with a class of Huawei and then looks for direct children of that div, and it looks for the paragraph which is a direct child. This is how you select the direct child using a greater than sign. And then let's do text transform uppercase. And then you can see now the text has been transformed to uppercase. Now the next thing is to make sure the content is displayed flex. So this is the content. Let's display flex on the content. So we can say, let's go back here and say dot content, then display flex. Now you can see everything looks a bit nicer, the content. And then before we forget, let's go and grab the bottom and display it flex as well. So you can say dot bottom, then display flex. All right, now everything looks a bit nice. So the next thing we are going to capture is inside the content. Let's give some gap. So after displaying it, flex, let's do gap of 0.5. You can see now the gap has been created. The next thing you might realize is that the icon and this description are displayed flex as well. So how we can do it is, let's grab the content, and in the content, we don't care about the image, we care about the details. And then inside the details, we care about the div, the direct div child. So if we select the direct div child, we are going to select all these items with the class of item. So we can even select it by dot item. So let's go and say dot content dot item and then display flex. Let's go to this. You can see now they are displayed flex, and then now we get even some breathing room. So something else, you can see now that this content side is grayed out in the background. So let's target that. So we are just going to say dot content dot details, and then we can say let's do some background color. So the color I have chose is F5, F5, F5. You can see the color has been added now, but the items are so close to the edges. Then we do a padding of 0.7 rem. You can see it, and then let's add a border radius to make sure that it is not sharp. So you can say border radius of 5 pixels. That looks a bit nice, and then you can see these items are too squeezed. So what we are going to do is we have the details, and then let's do it display flex as well. So you can say display flex direction of column, and then a gap of maybe 0.5 rem. Right, and then let's go back to the content and align items to the center. Right, that looks a bit nice. I think we can stick to that. The next thing you need to capture is this text. You can see here it's very small, here it's very large. So how are we going to capture that text? So we can grab the item. So let's see, we styled the item. This is the item itself. We displayed flex, and then let's align items to the center. So this is the item, the first one and the second one. And then after aligning it to the center, then let's do some gaps, maybe 0.2 rem. You don't want them to be so squeezed. This is the gap. And then let's reduce the opacity, or I think it's okay. We can stay like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty it. Let's reduce this text size. So how are we going to select that? So this is the text. It lies here. So it lies from the dot item, the div, and the paragraph. So we can grab it by doing dot item div p, and then font size, let's do 0.8 rem. Okay, that's becomes a bit small, which is what we want. I think we can stop from there, and now let's style the bottom part. This is the bottom part. We want it to look exactly like this. So let's do it. So the bottom is displayed flex. The next thing is to justify the content. Justify content space between. So if there is enough space, let them distribute themselves. And then we align the items to the center. So if I go here, you can see the button is too large. We need to align these items to the center. You can see now the button respects the others. The next thing you might realize is that this icon and this text are aligned side by side. So how we can do that is go to the bottom. we already captured the button, so we need to go to the bottom, grab the direct child div, and grab the next child div. So how we get direct div, which is a child, so we can say dot bottom, and then we grab the direct child. So not every div, it's just the direct child. The direct child means that if we capture like that, we are not going to capture the inner div. So if we say dot bottom direct div, this is the direct div. It has to be a children of the parent class. So we can do div, and then from the div we capture the next direct child, which is this one. Capture the direct child, which is this. From this, capture the next direct child, which is this div, and then display that flex. Display flex. And then what you can see now is that this has started to respect what we expect. Let's do some gap. We can say gap of 0.2 rem. Now you can see they are not squeezed together. And then after the gap, let's align items to the center. The icon and the text now are aligned to the center. I think what is remaining is the button. Let's style the button and call it a day. So we can say button. First of all, let's give it a background color of red. You can see now we have some ugly borders. Let's remove the border. We can say border none. And then after that, let's add some padding. So we start with padding. Padding vertical, let's do 12 pixels. Padding horizontal, 10 pixels. You can see now it has started to take shape. And then the next one is text transform. We transform the text to uppercase. It has. The next thing I've realized is that in the bottom, let's go and add some gap. So here, let's do some gap of 0.5 rem. Right, and then the next thing, let's reduce this size of this text. So how we can do it is that we grab the dot bottom, and then we grab the paragraph, and then say font size 0.8 rem. And now it looks a bit nice. How I captured that is the dot bottom, and then we capture all the paragraphs because you only have one type of paragraph inside. So the next thing is to change the color. We can say color white. Now it looks almost done. Let's add some. You can see now the edges are too sharp. Let's add some border radius. So border radius of 5 pixels. Now I think it looks exactly similar to what we wanted it to be. So yeah, so this is how you can clone a page or a section from a real world application. You can see this is what we cloned. This is GSM Arena. And as I said, this is just for educational purposes. So don't clone other people's content. We're just doing it for educational purposes. And yeah, that's it, guys. So make sure you like, follow, and subscribe for more. Thank you.